Hello, Brentwood L. It's Mr. Rolfs here to wish you guys some happy holiday wishes. I brought my Charlie Brown Christmas tree along with these beautiful decorations. But I just want to tell you to be safe during this holiday season, keep yourself well, and hopefully we will see you soon in person at some point because I miss you guys. And once again, I wish you happy holidays and a wonderful 2021.
Hi, boys and girls. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mrs. Ehrlich, and I am a kindergarten teacher here. And today I'm going to read one of my favorite Christmas stories, How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. I have my dog Max here to help me out. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop the whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. Ho, ho, ho. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. And he chuckled, ha, 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 and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said. If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and an old empty sack on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, Giddy up, and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinch Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bag in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who's stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room, and he took every present. Popguns, bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the toys, one by one, up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed up the food. He stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. I'm taking it up home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And the fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, that old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, and all the Who's still in a bed. All the Who's still snooze. When he packed up his sled, he packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsels, the trimmings, and the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh, pooh to the Who's," he said grinchishly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, 'Boo-hoo!'" "And that's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could this be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. I hope you enjoyed this story, boys and girls. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Happy holidays, Brentwood Bulldogs. My name is Miss Hernandez, and I teach in room 8. I'm a 4th grade teacher, and I'm here to share a fun book about Hanukkah, and it's called The Borrowed Hanukkah Latkes. And latkes are like potato pancakes, and the author is Linda Glazer, and I think you're going to like it. If you ever check this one out, it starts with a recipe, and you could even make these at home if they sound yummy to you. Rachel hopped on one foot, then the other. It was the last night of Hanukkah, and all the relatives were coming. Papa got out extra plates. Mama flipped latkes left and right. Here, she gave Rachel a latke. Rachel took a bite. Mama's potato latkes weren't just good. They were like taking a little trip straight up to heaven. That was really good. The phone rang, and Mama wiped her hands on her apron. Hello, Miriam. Oh, your Aunt Tilly? Sure, she can come. And her 7 grandchildren? Of course. I'll have plenty of latkes, don't worry. Mama got off the phone and shook her head. 8 more people. Rachel bounced in the chair. That makes 17, including us. Mama held her head. 17 people in this tiny house? And less than an hour until they come. Papa, get more dishes down. Rachel, get more potatoes from the cellar. Rachel raced downstairs, grabbed the potato sack, and raced back up. Mama opened the sack. Only 3 sick little potatoes? That's what's left, said Rachel. Oy, Mama smacked her forehead. This is bad. It's too late to go to the store. Maybe we can borrow some from Mrs. Greenberg, said Rachel. No, Mama shook her head. It wouldn't be right. She's all alone. Every year I invite her, she won't come. She thinks she'd be a bother, but she always says, if you need anything, just let me know. She's got a heart of gold, but she's as stubborn as an ox. Maybe she'll come if we borrow her potatoes, said Rachel. Good idea, said Mama. Quick, go ask. Rachel raced next door, and Mrs. Greenberg's house was always clean and tidy, like its face was just scrubbed and its blouse was just tucked in, while Rachel's house always looked like it was still in its pajamas and needed to brush its hair yet. Rachel knocked, and the door swung open. Well, 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 look who's here. Come in, come in. When Mrs. Greenberg smiled, it was with her whole face. Rachel stepped inside. Everything was still. It didn't seem much like Hanukkah, except for the menorah with candles waiting. Sit down, I don't charge extra, Mrs. Greenberg winked. And Rachel shook her head. I can't stay. Mama's making latkes. Can we borrow some potatoes? Borrow? Mrs. Greenberg frowned. No. She rushed off and soon returned with a big sack. Here, don't borrow. I don't want them back. You should all eat them in good health. Thank you, said Rachel. And now please come. We want you with us. Mrs. Greenberg was silent, so silent you could hear the walls listening. You could hear the rug holding its breath. Rachel, dear, she finally said, your mama has enough tumult without me. All those latkes, all that work, I know how it is. Years ago, every Hanukkah, my house was filled with people too, but those days are long gone. She smoothed down her apron. Now you go home, and happy Hanukkah. Rachel dragged her feet home. She set the sack on the counter. Wonderful, Mama said. Not so wonderful, said Rachel. Mrs. Greenberg won't come. Didn't I tell you, said Mama, she has a heart of gold, but she's as stubborn as an ox. Now, quick, get the rest of the eggs for the latkes. Rachel looked in the refrigerator. There aren't any left. Oy! Mama smacked her forehead. This is bad. Rachel nodded. I'll go ask Mrs. Greenberg. No, Mama shook her head. It's not right. We have to, said Rachel. Now she'll have to come. Rachel ran over. Can we borrow some eggs for the latkes? Borrow? Mrs. Greenberg shook her finger at Rachel. She handed her a carton of eggs. Don't borrow. Use them in good health. Thank you, said Rachel. And now please come for Hanukkah. Thanks anyway, said Mrs. Greenberg, but honestly, I'm more comfortable right here in my own house. Back at home, Rachel set the eggs on the counter. Mrs. Greenberg still won't come. Maybe I'll take her some latkes. Don't, said Mama. No one wants to eat Hanukkah latkes alone. That minute, the doorbell rang. Aunts, uncles, and cousins poured in, all hugging, kissing, and laughing, and crowding around. But when it was time to eat, no one sat down. There weren't enough chairs. I'll get some crates from the cellar, said Papa. What was Papa thinking? To sit on crates and eat latkes? Wait, said Rachel. I have an idea. She ran straight to Mrs. Greenberg's house. Can we borrow some chairs? Of course. Take what you need. One by one, Rachel carried the chairs to Mrs. Greenberg's front door. Then she stopped. Oh, I just thought. But no, I shouldn't ask for anything else. Ask, said Mrs. Greenberg. Whatever it is, I want you to have it. All right, said Rachel. We need room for all these chairs. Room? What do you mean, room? Asked Mrs. Greenberg. Rachel tried not to smile. You have lots of room. Mrs. Greenberg looked at Rachel. You mean your guests should come and sit in my house? That would be nice, said Rachel. Mrs. Greenberg was quiet for a long time, so long that the walls got tired of waiting and the rug couldn't hold its breath anymore. Finally, she spoke. Rachel, my dear, someday when you're an old lady like me, I hope you have a girl living right next door who's as smart and sweet as you. I'd love to have some company for Hanukkah. Rachel threw her arms around her. Mrs. Greenberg hugged her back. Rachel, you have a heart of gold, but did anyone ever tell you you're as stubborn as an ox? No, said Rachel, but thank you, and the same to you. Me, Mrs. Greenberg laughed. You're worse than me, Rachel. I didn't think that was possible. So everyone trooped over with plates full of latkes, and Rachel marched over with 2 plates. She handed one to Mrs. Greenberg. Here, said Rachel, don't borrow, just eat them in good health. Happy holidays, Bulldogs!
Hi, Bulldogs. It's Mrs. Schneider here. I'm a first grade teacher at Brentwood Elementary, and I'm here this afternoon by the tree to read you a holiday story. We have a couple teachers that are reading you holiday stories, and I'm going to read you a story about Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa is a holiday that I want to teach you about, and it's going to be in the form of a story. Right. So I'm going to read you the introduction of the story I'm going to read. This is written by the author, which the author is Debbie Chocolate, which I love that name because chocolate is one of my favorite things. It's probably one of your favorite things too. Lighting the first candle of the Kwanzaa season is always a big thrill in our household. For 7 days, we celebrate the joy of African harvest and culture and the joy of being a family. Each night, by lighting the candles of the Kinara, we celebrate Kwanzaa as a holiday of lights. During the Kwanzaa season, African American children may wear brightly colored designs that reflect the bold, brilliant textiles rooted in African art and life. And I learned that they wear a lot of red, green, and black, which is why I'm wearing this outfit today. This book is about a boy who celebrates Kwanzaa with his family and learns something valuable about his heritage. The African language of Swahili is used to present the 7 cherished principles of the Kwanzaa celebration. As you learn about and enjoy Kwanzaa with your children, with me, remember that Kwanzaa should be celebrated as a holiday of shared harvest, shared memories, and shared beliefs. So that's a little bit about what the author wrote about this story. I want to give you a quick background about Kwanzaa, and then I'll start the story. Kwanzaa is like a family day in the park, and Thanksgiving, and a birthday all rolled into one. Kwanzaa is a joyous African American holiday that is 7 days long. It begins on December 26th and lasts throughout the first day of January. The name Kwanzaa comes from the East African language of Swahili. It means first fruits of the harvest. And here's a picture showing you a little bit of what it's like. The other background information I want to give you before I start my story is about the candles. 7 Kwanzaa candles are proudly placed in our kinara, a wooden candle holder. And there it is. So there's 7 candles. A black candle in the center represents the richness of our skin. 3 red candles are reminders of the struggles we sometimes have to face. 3 green candles tell us to always look toward a prosperous future. For each day of Kwanzaa, 1 candle is lighted to celebrate a special principle. The 7 Kwanzaa principles, called Nguzo Saba, come from beliefs that are held by families in many parts of Africa. These beliefs help us learn, achieve, and grow. So again, there's the picture of the kinara. And now I'm going to start my story. My first Kwanzaa book, by Deborah Chocolate, illustrated by Cal Massey. There's the kinara. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, Daddy helps me dress up in an African shirt. Mama dresses like an African queen. And the first candle is lit. And that first principle is Umja, which means unity, which means togetherness. And Grandpa comes visiting with good things to eat. That's the second day. And here's the second candle lit, and that is Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. I'm learning how to say these terms also. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, Daddy flies our red, black, and green flag. Mama hangs our map of the motherland. So here's a map of Africa, which she's calling her motherland. And the third day, the third candle is lit, and it's Ujima, which means collective work and responsibility. And I help light the colorful Kwanzaa candles. And that's the next day, the fourth day, and the fourth candle is lit. And that principle is Ujima, which means cooperative economics. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, we tell family stories each night to make the holiday special. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, Uncle Preety reads me stories about Africa. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, Grandma and I spend time together stringing African beads. And then the 5th candle is lit, and that principle is Nia, which means purpose. When Mama says it's Kwanzaa time, it's time for a family reunion with aunts from Georgia, with my uncle from the Army, and with cousins from all over. And the 6th candle is lit on the 6th day, and that stands for Kuumba, which stands for creativity. And on the last day of Kwanzaa, we share gifts and hugs that last until the next Kwanzaa comes. And the final candle is lit right there, and that's called Imani, which means faith. So I just want to read the little information about Kwanzaa at the very end. It says, the father of Kwanzaa is Moana Ron Karaganaga. I might have said that wrong, I'm so sorry. An African-American scholar and social activist. Kwanzaa was established in 1966 as the only African-American holiday. Kwanzaa celebrates African harvest and beliefs and values of traditional African customs. All right, happy holidays, Bulldogs.